Is Eric out there, man?
And Eric Clapton is the guitar god at that point. Clapton is God.
Yeah.
Some of the best guitarists in rock history have collaborated with and influenced Paul McCartney. Even though George Harrison was a legendary lead guitarist for the Beatles, it will require time and patience. McCartney has frequently discussed other athletes who had a profound influence on him, from Jimi Hendrix's unadulterated fire to Eric Clapton's blues-infused skill. In addition to their technical mastery, McCartney's selections exhibit emotional nuance and inventiveness. Which four guitarists do you think McCartney likes the best? Let's examine his top selections and what makes them unique. Hendrix, Jimi. Paul McCartney's passion for Jimi Hendrix has never been a secret. McCartney has expressed his admiration for Hendrix's exceptional talent in a number of interviews over the years, even going so far as to refer to him as the greatest guitarist of all time. This great acclaim isn't just the result of sentimentality, or the awe that naturally develops around great performers. Instead, it comes from McCartney's personal experiences, seeing directly Hendrix's genius, and having a profound awareness of what it is to be truly artistically masterful. One of those fortunate events that seemed to influence rock history was McCartney's initial meeting with Hendrix. It took place at the Bag of Nails, a small bar in London that is well known for drawing well-known musicians. In front of McCartney, Eric Clapton, and Pete Townsend of The Who, Rise, who was still mostly unknown in the UK at the time, took the stage. What started off as an ordinary night out swiftly turned into a memorable one. The room was electrified by Hendrix's presence from the first note he played. His performance involved much than merely technical skill. The audience was enthralled by the riot of sound, passion, and unadulterated energy. McCartney and no one else had ever seen Hendrix's approach to the guitar like this. Instead of merely playing the instrument, he controlled it, shaped it to suit his needs, and made it a part of himself. He elicited previously unheard notes, causing the guitar to growl, whisper, and wail with a deep intensity. It was more than just his unparalleled speed and accuracy. It was the way he brought emotion to every note, which made every performance incredibly engrossing. Days after the Beatles' historic 1967 record Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was published, Hendrix gave one of the most unforgettable performances of his boldness and genius. When Hendrix approached the stage at the London Savile Theatre, he opened his act with a fiery performance of the album's title track, shocking the crowd. The gesture's audacity was astounding. In just a few days, Hendrix had not only mastered the song but also completely transformed it into his own. McCartney, who attended the performance that evening, was profoundly impressed and in awe. It was evidence of the Beatles' enduring influence to hear a performer of Hendrix's skill bravely interpret Sgt. Pepper. But it was a hint of something deeper than that. Hendrix was more than just a band who covered a hit tune. He was a musician who could take any composition, transform it using his own style, and make it even better. That evening's dedication to him went beyond simple flattery. It was a recognition that Hendrix was pushing the boundaries of what was possible with the electric guitar. This instance perfectly captured McCartney's admiration for Hendrix. It was more than just technique or skill. A lot of musicians were quick players. A lot of people could learn challenging riffs. Hendrix, however, had more. An unadulterated bond with his instrument, the capacity to express unadulterated passion via his playing, and an unafraid attitude toward pushing musical boundaries. He was more than just a musician. It was a part of his life, and in doing so, he changed the guitar's fundamental potential. McCartney still has the same admiration for Hendrix as he did when he first saw him play. Still in awe of the enchantment that Hendrix brought to the stage, he has frequently talked about Hendrix with admiration over the years. He has told tales of Hendrix's desire to try new things, his outstanding stage presence that made every performance distinctive, and his seamless ability to combine rock, blues, and psychedelic elements to create something completely original. Decades after his tragic death, Hendrix's impact on music is still unmatched. According to McCartney, Jimi Hendrix was and will always be the best guitarist of all time. Halen, Eddie. Despite having musical roots in the early years of rock and roll, Paul McCartney has never been constrained by nostalgia. Rather, appreciating those who have pushed the limits of musical expression and welcoming innovation. Eddie Van Halen is one of these icons that McCartney finds particularly noteworthy. Van Halen, who is renowned for his groundbreaking use of the guitar in the 1970s and 1980s, transformed the sound of rock with his virtuosity and unbounded imagination. Eddie Van Halen's technical mastery, lightning-fast solos, complex tapping style, and explosive stage presence were all impressive, but so was his greater comprehension of the subtle emotional undertones of music. McCartney, who values melody, emotion, and dynamics over technical excess in his own composition, found great resonance in Van Halen's ability to combine moments of restraint with absolute power. According to McCartney, Van Halen had a natural ability to know when to show off his guitar prowess, and when to back off and let the song speak for itself. What made Van Halen unique was his nuanced understanding of the harmony between fire and elegance. This trait reminded McCartney of the greatest musicians in history, those who realized that music is about arousing feeling as much as it is about showcasing skill. This idea was best demonstrated by the Beatles themselves, who wrote songs that prioritized melody and narrative over technical complexity. Van Halen's performance had a similar sense to McCartney and his comrades' use of space and stillness in their compositions, whether in the sorrowful lulls of Yesterday or the powerful builds of Hey Jude. He knew how to manipulate sound to complement rather than overshadow a song, whether he was giving passionate lyrical phrasing in songs like Jump and Panama or releasing fiery leads on Eruption. McCartney's love for performers who innovate their instruments while retaining a fundamental connection to the craft of songwriting is also reflected in this understanding of balance. Similar to Hendrix before him, Van Halen was a real innovator whose contributions went beyond the fretboard in addition to being a technical master. Rock music changed as a result of his experiments with guitar modifications, harmonics, and tones. McCartney's admiration for Van Halen reflects his larger view of the development of rock music, much as the Beatles had transformed popular music with their innovative studio methods. Despite being a 1960s legend, McCartney has always acknowledged and celebrated the contributions of following generations of musicians rather than discounting them. His appreciation of Van Halen reflects his recognition that rock music is a dynamic art form that is always changing. Because of his willingness to adapt and try new things while adhering to the core ideas of great songwriting, McCartney has been able to stay current over the years. In the end, McCartney's acknowledgement of Eddie Van Halen is evidence of his persistent conviction that music is about more than just talent. It's not just about technique. It's about emotion, feeling, and understanding when to let the notes do the talking. In this sense, Van Halen, like McCartney, will always be regarded as a musician who genuinely grasped the language of music, not merely as a master of his instrument. Gilmour, David. Paul McCartney's respect for David Gilmour, another legendary figure in British rock, is well-founded and stems from their similar taste in music. The renowned former Beatle has long said that he admires artists who are able to use their instruments to express deep emotion, and Gilmour is a shining example of this uncommon talent. Their first significant cooperation occurred in the 1980s when Gilmour was asked by McCartney to play a guitar solo on the song No More Lonely Nights, which was featured on McCartney's Give My Regards to Broadreed, 1984 soundtrack album. The song's solo by Gilmour is a perfect illustration of his talent. It's soaring, expressive, and filled with the kind of passion that characterizes his finest compositions. Gilmour and McCartney's paths kept crossing throughout the years, both in the studio and on stage. In addition to their professional regard, they have a great deal of respect for one another's musical tastes. Gilmour is a genius, a term McCartney frequently uses and does not use lightly. Gilmour's aptitude is unquestionable, but McCartney believes that his genius is more in his ability to use his guitar as a vehicle for his feelings than in his technical mastery. Gilmour doesn't focus on speed or intricacy in his playing. Touch, sensation, and the evocative force of every note he plays are all important. According to McCartney, Gilmour stands out for his special ability to use his instrument to convey intense, frequently inexpressible emotions. Although many guitarists possess technical talent, few are as adept as Gilmour at creating solos that have a narrative quality. His work with Pink Floyd demonstrates his ability to produce a vast aural environment that goes beyond simple musical technique, especially on songs like Comfortably Numb, Time, and Shine on You Crazy Diamond. His solos are more than just song embellishments. They are essential to the music's emotional impact. His use of deliberate note selection and a sense of purpose and weight in each performance strikes a deep chord with McCartney's own artistic philosophy. Gilmour appeals to McCartney, who has always valued melody and emotional connection over technical glitz. As a bassist, McCartney is aware of the value of maintaining discipline and employing the appropriate note at the appropriate moment rather than overcomplicating a composition. With his guitar playing, Gilmour exemplifies this idea, demonstrating that occasionally a single prolonged note played with the appropriate phrasing may have far more impact than a barrage of fast-paced scales. In addition to their creative collaboration, McCartney and Gilmour have performed together several times, which has strengthened their appreciation for one another. The Cavern Club, the storied Liverpool location where the Beatles' renown refined their craft in the early 1960s, was one of the most memorable occasions in 1999, when Gilmour joined McCartney for a special performance. Gilmour further cemented his relationship with Paul McCartney by adding his unique guitar work to McCartney's live band at this event, which was recorded and later released as Paul McCartney Live at the Cavern Club. Both performers' dedication to using their art for worthwhile causes was further demonstrated in 2001 when Gilmour and McCartney played together at the Concert for New York City, an event held in response to the 9/11 attacks. Gilmour's ability to continuously change his sound without losing his distinctive emotional depth is another reason McCartney admires him. As an artist who has successfully negotiated several musical reinventions himself, McCartney surely respects Gilmour's pursuit of a cerebral and atmospheric solo career, even outside of Pink Floyd. Although both musicians have changed over the years, they have managed to hold on to a fundamental quality that makes their music instantly recognized and profoundly poignant. Paul McCartney and David Gilmour are two of the most prominent figures in the vast pantheon of British rock. Gilmour pushed the horizons of rock music with Pink Floyd, while McCartney transformed mainstream music with the Beatles. Their admiration for one another is evidence of the timeless appeal of music that puts emotion above technique. Both musicians continue to inspire future generations of musicians and listeners, whether through their joint endeavors or their separate accomplishments. Gilmour is the epitome of emotive guitar playing, according to McCartney, a musician who enlivens notes, making them speak to the listener's emotions, rather than merely playing them. Clapton Eric. Long before Paul McCartney ever publicly acknowledged his adoration for Eric Clapton, his legendary standing in the rock and blues world was solidified. By the time McCartney started showcasing Clapton's work, the guitarist had established a strong reputation as a solo artist whose emotive and technically sound playing made him one of the most admired musicians of his generation, in addition to his work with the Yardbirds and Cream. But McCartney's admiration for Clapton extends beyond only praising his early brilliance. The most notable aspect is McCartney's acknowledgement of Clapton's growth and sophistication over time. They have been connected since the late 1960s, when Clapton was already a prominent member of the British rock scene. When George Harrison asked Clapton to play the lead guitar solo on While My Guitar Gently Weeps, a notable song on the Beatles' White Album, their paths formally met in a big way. Clapton and Harrison were close friends. Clapton's participation was an anomaly that demonstrated Harrison's deep regard for Clapton's skill, even though the Beatles hardly ever included outside musicians on their albums. One of the most famous songs in the Beatles' repertoire is Clapton's eloquent, soaring solo, which cemented his status as not only a member of the Fab Four but also a man who could compete with them. Naturally, McCartney and the rest of the world were aware of Clapton's genius at the time. However, his admiration for Clapton's development as a guitarist distinguishes his viewpoint. McCartney has repeatedly noted that Clapton's later work carries an emotional depth and wisdom that is just as, if not more, impressive than his youthful virtuosity. This is true even though many listeners and critics tend to focus on Clapton's electrifying early years, his blistering solos with Cream, his work with Derek and the Dominoes, or his powerful blues interpretations. According to McCartney, Clapton's playing has become more sophisticated and mature in recent years, reflecting decades of expertise and personal development. The older Clapton plays with a controlled assurance, a feeling of restraint that lets each note breathe, whereas the younger Clapton wowed with speed, technical mastery, and explosive improvisations. This change is a reflection of both his artistic development and his life's path, which has been filled with both successes and setbacks, ranging from overcoming addiction to experiencing personal loss. McCartney has a great deal of respect for Clapton's ability to incorporate these experiences into his music. McCartney's praise of albums like From the Cradle, 1994, and Clapton, 2010, which highlight Clapton's ability to combine technical skill with intense emotion, is particularly clear. In his later performances, he frequently demonstrates a quiet strength in which each note is played with meaning and purpose. Rather than just as a demonstration of skill, McCartney admires this type of artistry. The transformation from a youthful, ferocious virtuoso to an accomplished musician who plays from the heart. McCartney has had a similar metamorphosis. He is a rock legend in his own right and a former Beatle, so he knows what it's like to change as an artist. He understands that the capacity to express passion, knowledge, and life experiences in music is just as important to true excellence as technical mastery. So it should come as no surprise that he finds Clapton's later work especially interesting. Although Clapton's guitar playing has always been superb in McCartney's opinion, it has acquired a new depth with age that speaks to a lifetime of artistic talent rather than merely technique.